Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, DEI ruling appealed. Also, mocking a dead enemy. And Tommy Tuberville is challenged on calling Islam a cult.
Inconceivable! You keep using the word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Cult. I don't even think he knows what that really means. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, columnist at APR and world-famous investigative reporter.
World famous, I like it.
World
I like
famous.
it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people read your stuff, man. You know, there's no doubt about that. This is this week's Christmas for a lot of people, and we want to wish everybody a happy Christmas and enjoy the season of giving, and the spirit of love may abound.
Yes, we hope so.
I can tell you where the spirit of love is anything but abounding, and that is with our erstwhile Tommy Tuberville, coach, as he likes to be called as a grown man. And he has come out again and doubled down on his hatred for Islam, calling Islam a cult. He is called to deport Islamic citizens of this country. And he has now been designated an anti-Muslim extremist. And I think that designation fits his rhetoric.
It absolutely does. He's now become the first senator to be labeled an anti-Muslim extremist. How proud has the state got to be of that?
And he's very proud of it, Josh.
Yeah.
Social media that he wears this hatred as a badge of honor. Now, I don't think he really understands the Muslim faith at all, but I think he does understand racism and hate. I think he understands that perfectly. You know, for a guy that whose career was made on the backs of black men, he sure has shown his colors as my interpretation, a racist Islamophobe. But again, that's my opinion.
Well, you know, I would say, first of all, I would bet that over the course of his coaching career, he had a number of players who probably practiced Islam and were Muslim, and that they were vital parts of his team and were good men, all of them. And you know, and so yeah, you're right. And the thing about Tommy Tuberville is I'm not sure that he has any real specific hardline beliefs about anything aside from what's best for helping Tommy Tuberville. And I think this is another in a long line of things that he does simply to hide the fact that he has no idea really how to govern, and he has no willpower whatsoever to go in and make himself a better senator, a better servant of the public, a better person to for young people to aspire to. He has no desire whatsoever for people to make the lives of the folks of this state better. And that I think is far more troubling than just the stupid, ignorant rhetoric that he has espoused numerous times now. I mean, it's not just this; it's the stuff about reparations a while back, and the stuff about immigration. And now we've gotten to this, and he really has, with the stuff that he's talked about with these poor kids up at the School of Islam in Homewood. He's put those kids in some danger, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
He's really kind of shined the spotlight on them and called this school that they're at. He's cast it in a light that makes people suspect them of some sort of nefarious acts. And I would say that in this day and age, when you do that, you take a real risk of putting some people in danger. And I don't think he cares. And that is that is probably the most, troubling and disappointing thing, that so many people in this state have elected this guy and are willing to elect him again to be the governor. When this is the way he behaves, it's really, really bothersome to me.
Well, and while you see, and I understand what you're saying about his policies, that he has none.
Mm-hmm.
But if you espouse this type of hate, doesn't there have to be some modicum of hate in your heart, or is this all performative? I mean, it's hard for me to believe it's just performative.
But I mean, a lot of this is performative. This started over at not establishing a school, but just moving a school from one location to another, get permission. He has nothing else to talk about. He's presented no policies. He's presented no platforms. All he's doing is presenting hatred.
But does he really think the people of Alabama are that hateful? But I want to move on. Doug Jones responded in an article written over at APR, and he once again emphasized his campaign promise to make Alabama a big table. It comes from a song by the Highway Women, and a big table where everybody has a seat at the table. Even if we disagree, we come together and work for the betterment of Alabama. Josh, you were at that event, and Jones just wants to bring people together, and he does have a detailed plan for Alabama.
Yeah, the thing about Doug is you're right. He has this desire to kind of bring people together. That's what he's always done. You look at his time in the Senate, and he worked with the other side. He listened to people. He talked to Republicans. He talked to the folks back home and tried to do things that he thought would make him a good senator, a good representative of them. And that's what he'll do as governor. He's already talked about a lot of this stuff, and he's the anti-Tuberville. He's gonna get in. He's gonna work. He's gonna do things that he thinks best. And we had him on our podcast this week, Alabama Politics this week, and we talked to him. And I said, I identified myself as a pro-business, pro-worker, pro-military progressive. And I said, that's why I think you and I relate well to each other. And he said, yeah. And that's basically who Doug is, he thinks that we can all come together. We can all work together, and we can do things that benefits workers, that benefits business, that benefits the least of us, and still have ourselves a very well-functioning state that does not focus on hating each other and our differences. And I think, wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah. And I think, we there are tremendous policy differences because Tuberville has no policies. Doug Jones does. And it's a character issue, Susan. And I know we don't have much time, but this is about what type of character do you want to lead the state?
And here's something that's been on my mind, and this may take just a second, and I'm sorry. We're not voting for homecoming king. All right, we're not voting for who we shouldn't be voting for, who we like, who we think is the coolest kid in school. We need to be looking at this from the standpoint of how does it affect my life? How does this one vote in Alabama affect my life as far as my children's education, as far as my health care? You need to stop and look as a voter and look at the policies and see how, because this affects your life for the next 4 years. And it's not a popularity contest.
And this should not be about Republican versus Democrat.
No.
It should be about good government, and it should be about the things that affect your life every day. But we'll leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics.
Home is your most valuable asset. But what if someone tried to steal it from you? Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
As a district attorney, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of property fraud. That's why I'm proud to support the Montgomery County Probate Court's REACT program.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
So don't wait. Sign up for REACT today and protect your home.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Once again, the bill has been introduced by Chris Elliott to further control library boards. I mean, last session they passed a bill that said you could remove a library board member with cause. Now he wants to make it so that you can remove a library board member without cause. And the reason is this continued censorship of books and telling parents what their children can read or what you can have in a public library. And this, again, type of censorship is going on. Again, Elliott has proposed once again to take control of history and archives here in Alabama so that they can't have any historical programs that disagree with the narrative that we are basically a straight, white, male nation. So, Susan, the thing that we see here is severalfold, but the clear picture here is that they want to control the narrative of the country as interpreted by their idea of moralism. And I don't, you don't have to say it's Christian moralism or anything else, but it's a moral standard that's not held by all Americans.
The key word here is control. They're wanting to control free speech. They're wanting to control what you can and cannot access. They're wanting to control every aspect of your life. The libraries are just a simple part of that. That's just a part. Remember, it was Chris Elliott got it crossways with archive because of a transgender gay luncheon that was held at archive over their history, and he didn't like that. He wanted to knock that out. Again, knocking out history by control. And what he's doing with these appointments is the same thing. If you can remove and add people to library boards, it puts the library board at the will of whomever's doing that appointment, whether it's the governor or the legislature.
I mean, Josh, this using state authority to control history and education and learning, this has been a tool that Alabama used in its 1901 Constitution and has perfected in many ways, but it's sweeping the nation as a whole because they're wanting to do away with this whole idea of pluralism, of diversity, of us having a nation that was truly built on all types of people.
Right. You're right. It's and I would also say, I wish people would go to a library board meeting sometime. And talk to the people who are actually on the library board. This is one of the most confusing times in the world for those folks. For so long, nobody gave a damn about the library board. As a matter of fact, in most cases, you had trouble finding people to even be on the library board. Because it was just such a, hey, here are the available books. Can we afford these books to put in our library? What can we do to expand the library? Those types of conversations. And now that these people have been cast in this light of villains because they've taken books that are available and for sale and put them in the library for people to come into this building that's publicly owned and decide for themselves which books they or their children would like to read. It's the most idiotic time to be alive. And you're right. It is. they want to control the history and they want to control this narrative because I've never seen a time in which people were more sensitive than some of the straight white male Christian males are at this particular time in our history. And it just is, it's just a stupid time to be alive, man. I mean, it's just the stupidest time where we create these boogeymen because we have people who obviously don't know how to govern and focus on real life issues. I mean, what person in this world sits down at night and goes, we can't pay our electric bill and the car payments coming due, and I don't know what we're going to do. But damn it, I tell you what's really bugging us is those books at the library. I mean, come on, man, what are we doing?
Yep. And again, the NAACP, the Legal Defense Fund, ACLU, and a group of Alabamians, college students and college professors, have appealed this DEI ruling where the state demanded that there be no such thing as diversity, equity, and inclusion at our state universities or school. And they argue that this violates the First and 14th Amendment. And I agree with them that it does. But the reason we want to do, at least in my mind, is diversity, equity, and inclusion is because people are actually getting ahead. And you know what? It has always been the diversity of our country that has made it great. It has always been the inclusion of other people who have made it great. And I don't know when we determined, I mean, they used to, chastise or denigrate Italians, Irish, I mean, all kinds of folks, Germans. I mean, Trump's ancestors came here searching for a better life because they felt they came from a crappy country that wasn't letting them get ahead. But now, Josh, Susan, I mean,
you're right. It's first of all, everybody came here looking for a better life. Everybody came here looking for a better way, and much of our history is built upon folks from diverse backgrounds coming in here and trying to figure out ways to get along and to work together, and then at one point having to work together to overcome the British and rule and become independent. But it has always been this recognition of the folks that founded this place, the recognition of we've got to figure out a way to make it fair for everybody. That was a big thing for them, was making it fair and figuring out how we work better together. And they leaned on a bunch of different people. There were a lot of folks from Africa. There were a lot of folks, Native Americans, who they leaned on and took a lot of things from. And there were just whole groups of people from different European countries that came here. At Valley Forge, for example, when they were building the structures to live in at Valley Forge, they had trouble. George Washington's Continental Army had trouble building them because they spoke so many different languages they couldn't communicate. Okay? That's where we started. And now to watch it be vilified every day is just really astonishing to me.
Well, and you got to be able to speak English to get a driver's license if they have their way. It's a good thing you didn't have to speak English to drive a mule cart back in the day, or Washington wouldn't have been at Valley Forge. He'd have been up at Creek. Anyway, we're going to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Throughout history of the world, predating history in many cases, the idea of hostility toward an enemy after they die was always considered anathema. It showed the character of the enemy more than it showed the character of the person who was killed in battle. The samurai code said that you had to show respect to the dead warrior that you killed because it showed your virtue. It pointed to your virtue. That was the same thing with the knights. You honored the dead even though you killed them. That was the cessation of hostilities. That has been true, and a moral line that people of decency do not cross. President Donald Trump, upon hearing of the death of Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle, crossed that line and said the most vile things about a dead man and his wife. A dead man and his wife who could not defend themselves, much less from the President of the United States. But he took the occasion, Susan, to blame Rob Reiner's political differences with his on the reason he was murdered. Now, that to me shows a moral character that is void of basic humanity. And it is so troubling. And very few Republicans have come out to defend him. There have been a few, but in Alabama, our politicians listen to the same rhetoric we had and remain silent. And this is not a time for silence. This is a time for truth, to call out this type of cruelty that is infecting the United States because Donald Trump lacks basic humanity.
As with everything, he always turns it to be about him. He always turns it to be about how great he is. He always turns it to himself. I have a vast vocabulary, but I cannot find the words enough to describe how disgusting this act has actually been and how upset I am that people are not responding. They're not saying anything. They're sitting silent and trying to change the subject. And in the South, we'd say, did his mother not raise him any better? Did his mother not raise him any better? To know that the basic thing, you don't speak ill of the dead, period. But you certainly don't speak ill of the dead in this magnitude as a leader, a world leader. Have no more empathy, no more compassion, no more self-control than to say the vile things that he said.
Because, Josh, this was planned, it was written, edited, and owned by the sitting president. And I know I've talked to Republicans who are shocked but silent.
Yeah.
Because their careers mean more to them than standing up for moral clarity.
Yeah, I don't know how long they could being tied to this guy is going to be good for their careers, but it is. It's the degradation of the office of the president under Donald Trump has been really astounding. I mean, it's something every day. Not to this level, obviously, usually, but it's just like he's hung the plaques underneath the portraits of the presidents that line the hallways, in which he calls Joe Biden sleepy and crooked and talks about President Obama being the most divisive president in history. It's just all of the insults that he's had over the years of these former presidents, and it's such a it's childish. It's a bad child. I don't even want to paint it as childish because I think that's unfair to children. Because it's a child who hasn't been raised right, who doesn't know right from wrong, who's been coddled and given things that they shouldn't be. Who's a spoiled child. Who blames everyone else for everything that ever happens, just like he did in his primetime address last week, where he blamed Democrats and Biden for the economy that now he's been in control of and has tanked through his tariffs. And it is it's just more of the same. And you keep waiting on people to wake up and realize that the emperor doesn't have on any clothes. And in the meantime, there's a lot of us sitting around going, "Hey, that dude is naked." And the other people are just sitting there silently, even though they know it full well. And I don't know when it's going to turn, but hopefully it's soon.
I mean,
Well, he's not only naked, he's sitting there sucking his thumb.
But Rob Reiner was one of his critics. Yes, he was, and a very effective one, because Rob Reiner had a world audience because of his incredible movies. But when he died or was murdered, that's when, as a president, you either shut up, offer even tepid, some kind of sympathetic response, but no decent human being attacks a dead man.
Yeah, he didn't have to say anything.
He didn't
have to say anything at all. There was no reason for him to say something. He wouldn't. Nobody was clamoring to hear Donald Trump's thoughts on it.
No, but he takes every occasion to make it about himself. Now, he we used to say about that. They used to say about Teddy Roosevelt that he was the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral. But this is because he wanted so much attention. But this type of, unbridled brutality, the unbridled narcissistic tendency, is the sign of a disordered mind, a mind that has lost complete restraint. And that is infecting our country because people learn to imitate their leaders, especially a president of the United States. Now,
look at the way our politicians speak. Look at the way they talk. Look at the way that they insult people now, and the way that things come out, and the way they give nicknames to people, and stuff. And yes, you're right. This flows from the top. People take cues from the leadership of the country on how to behave and how to act and what's acceptable. And we've got a whole generation of people who we're going to at some point have to reel back in because they've been infected by this absolute garbage that has spewed from the White House.
Yeah, and let me ask you, and you politicians, especially Republicans, is this type of behavior something that you would allow to come from inside your own home? Is this the type of behavior that you believe, and especially those who claim to be Christians, that Jesus would condone? Because if you do, you've got some serious soul searching. But anyway, I think we've run out of time.
Well said.
Remember, you can catch us on YouTube, all major platforms. You can catch our clips on Facebook that are going gangbusters. So we appreciate you doing it. Tell your friends and family and subscribe. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.